Right, happy snow day, everyone, and everyone online who are, hey, Francisco, yes, we do have a lot of snow. I'm an EIR here at Swartz, and I graduated from Heinz in 2003 and started a tech startup, a tech nonprofit, actually called Food Rescue Hero. And in that process and transforming it into a social enterprise, like really got to understand alternative sources of startup funding because we weren't a typical startup. And as I was doing that, realized that a lot of people are overlooking some of the more, the less known ways that startups can generate funding, because it's really, really hard for, the traditional VC route, the traditional seed angel route, especially at certain stages where you haven't achieved your proof of concept yet. And so I'm going to talk about some of those avenues, and then we're going to have a guest speaker, Francisco from the PRIs. For those of you who are looking at entering the McGuinness competition, your application can dovetail directly into the PRIs, which is a 1 million prize. And Francisco is going to talk a little bit about that. So that's very exciting. So, in a lot of VC funding, there's such a thing that there's what I call the 2% barrier. And it's hard enough to get VC funding. Only a small percentage of companies will be successful in getting VC funding. But for some segments of the population and for some ventures, it's even harder. So 2023, just as an industry kind of trend, it was the lowest rate of venture funding since 2018, so for the last 5 years. So even that avenue of funding is, which was originally difficult, is getting even more so. Seed funding in Q4 2023 was around 7 billion, which is about 4,500 deals. So you can imagine typical seed funding on average would be about 1.5 million, given those numbers. But what I'm going to talk about is even before seed funding. So a lot of the startups that students are working on are really from the ground. And again, some of it, is not even going to be possible without some funding to reach some proof of concept. And then when you go to, minority populations, female founders, and this statistic has not moved for ages. You receive only 2% of VC funding. If you're Black or Latino, it's 0.1%. And, on the other side of that, inordinately, women start 1 in 3 of all businesses. So there's that really clear barrier for female-founded companies. Black founders, again, also less than 2%. And then if you're a social impact company, and a lot of this conversation and a lot of this presentation is for startups that have and can demonstrate some social impact. Now, you don't have to be a nonprofit, which is what you'll see, but impact companies also get less than 2% of venture funding. So what are the alternative routes for seed or, startup, even pre-seed? There's a few that I'm going to talk about, but really there are some kind of conditions to these routes that I'm going to talk about. It is a great opportunity for minority-founded and impact startups. So what are impact startups? These don't have to be nonprofit. If your startup can demonstrate some sort of social return on investment, and that could be measured in many ways. So for instance, I'm going to talk about Varsha because I know what she's working on. It could be health. That's a social good, right? Are you familiar, if any of you are familiar with the United States Sustainable Development Goals, these are 17 goals. It ranges from ending hunger to better supply chains, meaning consumption and production, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can connect your startup to one of those 17 goals, then you could say you can have a measurable social return on investment. Again, so think of a challenge, think of serving a challenged population or an overlooked population. Think of serving segments of business that are not typical for profits. Like even if you are a for-profit, but you're serving nonprofits or the education field, there's some social good that is a driver for your organization. So it only bears looking at your company and then really thinking about if there is a part of what you're doing that can be of service to the world, of service to a segment of the population, to a segment of business that typically gets overlooked. So basically what I'm trying to say is it's not that difficult. What is demanded of this is, of course, that you are authentic about it, that you're not just going to use some social good as, as a greenwash, right? And so one of the ways you can check, again, is to look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or if you look at the Global Impact Investment Network, they have what's called IRIS, which is the Impact Reporting and Investment Standards. And you can use those as rubrics for measuring impact. So the avenues that I'm going to talk about are philanthropy, primarily what's called program-related investments, prizes, which is what the Hulk Prize, what Francisco is going to talk about, fellowships, which are generally, given to founders of companies, but typically come not only with network building, but also with either a stipend. One of the biggest barriers is how do you start a startup when you need to make money as well? A stipend or a small grant that can be given towards your company. And then there's a field of investing that's impact investing. So I'm going to touch a little bit on social impact funds and what's called patient capital. And I'm not going to touch on these last two, but if you want to take note of it, there's also social impact bonds and quasi-equity arrangements, such as revenue sharing arrangements. So these are traditional finance routes, but instead of equity, there's models where, the investor shares in future revenue. And then when I talk about these avenues for investment, know that these funding organizations typically provide more than one of the above. They often cross-cut each other, and you can have multiple opportunities within one funding organization, which of course is always encouraged. So for instance, if you get a fellowship with an organization, that typically opens up a door towards further impact investing from an organization. I could talk about what those examples are. Okay, so let's talk about philanthropy. Philanthropy, you may know them as, foundations, private foundations, grant-making organizations, and typically we know of them because they fund nonprofits, and they typically fund nonprofits through grants. And the way that philanthropy works is that basically a foundation has a big endowment, and by law, they are required to give out 5% of whatever that endowment is annually, and so that 5% is typically given as grants and grants to 501c3 and 501c4 organizations. But more and more, and increasingly more so, there's an instrument within the foundation community called program-related investments and mission-related investments, and I'll talk about the difference between those two. So program-related investments was made possible in 1969 by the Tax Act. And basically what this allows foundations to do is to invest in for-profit companies, and it counts within that 5% that they have to distribute every single year. And what it means is that a program-related investment is an investment in a for-profit company that is mission aligned with the foundation's goals. And usually that program related investment, while it is, not a grant, comes in the form of many, many things that are unique to it. For instance, it could be patient capital. It could have a structure where it's, a 10-year loan with where you pay only for interest, and then you only pay for the principal if you turn a certain profit. So that's one of the arrangements that are possible. But really, these are investments that could either be convertible notes, it could be equity, and PRIs, kind of have a whole range of that. And so, like, for instance, if it is a loan, one of the ways that, a foundation might distribute the loan differently is that they could take a position that is, after all your other lenders. So, and I hope Bobby Zapala is going to come, but a local foundation that provides program-related investments is the Richard King Mellon Foundation, which is one of the largest foundations here in the region. So again, if you look at, and even though it was enabled in 1969, it's only really becoming more popular more recently. And so there's around, if you can imagine, there's around 130,000 foundations in the United States with about $1 trillion in endowments. And the best way, one of the best resources for that is the foundation directory. Now, unfortunately, so if you go to the foundation directory and you can access that not at the CMU library, but at the Carnegie libraries, and you can access that and search for program-related investments, you'll get all of the foundations that do give out program-related investments, and their profiles will show what their focus areas are. Okay, so again, some examples are the Richard King Mellon Foundation here in Pittsburgh, and then the McConnell Foundation in Canada, which is a traditional foundation, but they actually have a goal to target 100% impact investing, which means PRIs, by 2028. So more and more, this is becoming a more usual avenue for foundations to be able to provide to startups. And then grants, I'm just going to give the example of the Roddenberry Catalyst, which gives, grants to basically anyone. So you don't even have to be a 501c3. So again, Foundation Directory and Grant Watch are two great resources to learn more about philanthropy and foundations and how you can harness that avenue of funding to seed your startup. Okay, this one, prizes and competitions. This is one of my favorite ones because, again, it often comes with more than just the prize. And then the prize, such as the Health Prize and the Earthshot Prize, which are substantial, it often comes with a lot of other more important things that will be, it's what I call the gift that keeps on giving, because it allows you access to a wide network that if you are a founder, that you can mine and basically create relationships with that will go beyond the prize. So, and prizes often include accelerators and other strategic programming. And then which is why I can't wait for Francisco, who participated in the Health Prize himself, to talk a little bit about what that means. So these are all linked in this deck, which will be available at the Connect's website. So the Health Prize is a $1 million prize for impact companies. And what is amazing about it, it is exclusive to students, which makes it, I think, the biggest student entrepreneurship competition. The Earthshot Prize is another example of a $1 million prize. It's focused on climate and it's not limited to students, and typically is awarded to a little bit more advanced organizations. And again, they don't have to be, and this comes in the form of non-diluted capital. So I think that's the key word here, is that these funds are they don't have with the expectation of equity. These are just given to you. Mass Challenge out of Boston is another example. The Norskin Accelerator is in Stockholm, and it's 125,000, and it is given to companies and startups globally. The Buckminster Fuller Design Challenge, which is not limited to, design as you might think of it, but design in its holistic meaning, is another exciting prize. And then there's the Cisco Innovation Challenge, which is, again, 1 million in prizes. Now, the caveat to prizes is typically that it takes a lot of work. And, we've participated in many prizes, but what I do say to this protest with prizes is that, well, it is a real concern that it takes a lot of time from the team, but it is often a discipline that you need to do anyway. And it's good to know how to answer these questions because they often make sense. Like, for instance, the Earthshot Prize will ask for a 10-year projection, which is probably, a longer time span than is practical because no one can really predict 10 years. But for me, I think it was useful to simply go through the exercise of going through the application for these prizes. So again, for the health prize, the fact that you're going through the McGinnis exercise is already kind of work towards the same goal. Fellowships. So fellowships, again, are something you can search for in a foundation directory or even just through any, search engine. So fellowships are typically grants plus ongoing network creation, which again is, I think, the biggest value and support for founders. And there's typically fellowships, depending on what vertical you're working on, whether it's health, whether it's climate, whether it will serve, regions and geographies that are overlooked. So, for instance, Echoing Green is as the name can already imply, is a climate-based fellowship, and it typically comes with I think about $80,000 to $100,000. And I can't remember if it's one time or over 3 years. But then an Echoing Green Fellowship is an extremely prestigious fellowship. So kind of like if you're a Swartz Fellow. And so having that in the founder resume, when you write your about section in your pitch, is also going to benefit you to the investor, right? It's basically, what do you call this? An endorsement of what you're able to do. So it's just good to, again, a lot of these fellowships have the same kind of cachet. So Acumen is, kind of a microfinance social enterprise organization that's global. They typically work in regions that are overlooked, again, Africa, parts of Asia. And they have fellowships regionally, and they started a food fellowship. So, and if any of you are working in food, they have a fellowship focused on food as well, but it is regional. So whatever is if you're working on a company that might serve multiple regions in the world, it's worth looking at Acumen Fellowships as one of the ones that you can target. And Acumen Fellowships are, again, one of the most prestigious fellowships because it not only opens an ongoing network of funders and markets, but also comes with other opportunities for follow-on funding from Acumen itself. Ashoka is another global organization. If you are a fellow at Ashoka, you get a 3-year grant. I think it's about $100,000. Or $150,000 over 3 years, which is $50,000 a year, again, as a founder who cannot not work, but also you want to focus on who cannot not have income, but you want to be able to focus on your work. Ashoka is one of the ways you can do that. Skoll Fellows are another really great one, and they are definitely very open to tech applications and applications with that kind of using technology as a tool. And then BMW Foundation is another global one that's great. And then there's the O'Shaughnessy Fellows. Again, you could take a look at these as starting points, and you could see if they apply, if their criteria applies to your company. All right, so impact investing, patient capital, and social impact funds. So impact investment are those that are made to generate positive, measurable social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. It's one of the fastest growing segments of, I would say, traditional venture capital. But again, a lot of impact investing, while they go through the same discipline as traditional investing, typically provide more patient capital and will look at, again, a social return on investment. Patient capital can mean anything from, again, convertible loans, or loans that have, very, very unique payment terms or longer term investment horizons. So examples of those are, again, Acumen, BDR Network, Root Capital, Grey Ghost, the Rockefeller Foundation, Calvert, Sorensen, and then Village Capital. So again, these are all non-traditional, I would say, avenues for capital that are focused on organizations that have a social impact. So here I also put some resources that you can use, to do further research. So GrantWatch, the Foundation Center are great for program-related investments. The CMU Library is a great resource, particularly for your purposes to access CB Insights. So I know the CMU Library doesn't have access to Crunchbase or PitchBook, but CB Insights can give you similar information and also provide you, of course, with industry and competitive information. So the way I use CV Insights is really to look at potential competitors and then look at who funded the potential competitors, and then looking at those funders and seeing if they can, and again, when you start following rabbit holes, this is one of the ways you can do it. The Foundation Center will also give you an idea of how, if you're looking at a field or a competitor or a partnering organization that's a nonprofit, you can also see what foundations have funded that nonprofit, and then going to those foundations and seeing if they have program-related investment avenues available for for-profit companies. So that's one of the strategies to use Foundation Center and CB Insights. The Global Impact Investment Network is, again, kind of the impact investing equivalent of Crunchbase and PitchBook, where it really focuses on impact investors. And you can also find some PRI organizations and foundations in there. The Miller Center at Santa Clara University works with social enterprises. Again, they have an accelerator that opens you up to funders, and they have a fantastic mentor program at this accelerator who are deeply connected with funders. And they are an active participant in SOCAP, which is the Social Capital Network. And this is a big conference that happens every year that's only focused on social enterprises, and that's in San Francisco. And then I love Pipeline Angels because they focus only on women and LGBTQ founded organizations, which again, is 2% to less than 2% of startups. So that's it for that overview. I'm going to give the floor to Francisco. Francisco will talk about the Health Prize. I know the McGuinness deadline was today? Tonight, yes. And again, the Health Prize is a $1 million prize for students. And I think Carnegie Mellon won 12 years ago. 2012 when the Holt Prize was just starting out. And the Holt Prize has gone through a number of iterations since then. But maybe this is the year that CMU brings it home again after 12 years. And Francisco will also talk about how you can use the McGuinness, your entry, or how and we're working together to define how that is. But if you are interested in that, you can email me after so we can talk about it. But let me stop sharing here. Francisco, if you want to share your screen.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Leah and Sarah, for having me come in. So let me start sharing. And I did want to ask for all of those who are joining us today, if you don't mind turning on your camera, that would be great. It's just a way for me to make sure that I'm not boring you while I speak and that I'm keeping you engaged. So let me share my screen. Perfect. Can you see my screen, Leah?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I did just want to give a little bit of a breakdown of myself before I get started. So last year, I was in the position you are in. I was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa, but moved to Boston last year to study my master's in international business. And once I got into the country, I was exactly in the position you are. I wanted to start a business. I didn't know 100% on how to do it or what direction to take. How am I going to do the fundraising? And that's when I came across the amazing opportunity of the Holt Prize. So I really wanted to share that with you guys today. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction. The Holt Prize is the world's largest student entrepreneur social impact contest in the entire world. The Holt Prize really inspires students to solve the world's biggest challenges through social entrepreneurship. And we do this by encouraging students to focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where at the end, you'll be competing for the $1 million in funding. In previous years, the Holt Prize has positioned himself to host different challenges around certain topics related to the United Nations SDGs. For instance, last year's topic was redesigning fashion. And though this was amazing, it really did limit certain teams from participating. But nonetheless, we always had incredible outcomes and incredible winners, as you can see from our past. One of our notable winners is Aspire Food Group, who came from McGill University, Canada, and they started off by providing an alternative protein source for the underprivileged. So they started with cricket farming, and it was just an idea. And fast forward a few years later, they now have the largest cricket farming facility in the whole world. They're an incredible success, and the company is valued at over $100 million. And for last year's topic, we had an incredible winning team coming out of Yale University called Banofi, and they focused on using banana crop waste and turning it into a leather alternative that was cruelty-free and animal-free. And the reason the Holt Prize sits so close to me and my heart is I was a participant myself. And what I like about the story we went through is we didn't win the competition. We had made it all the way to the finals, but what the Holt Prize allowed us to do was turn our idea into a reality. And that's what's amazing about the structure of the Holt Prize, is as you progress throughout the competition, we provide you with certain requirements for submissions and deadlines, but these really work as almost like a step ladder where every step you take is a move closer to making your business a reality. So now in the beginning, you can enter with just an idea, but you can also enter if you have an existing business. And the way the rubric and judging criteria is set up makes the playing field even. So when you get to the next levels of the competition, it becomes a little bit more technical when we might look at things such as your MVP or your prototype. And if you make it all the way to the global finals, that's where we will start requiring things such as business registration. Because if you've made it that far, you have a business that is incredibly well. And from my personal experience, the most important part wasn't the $1 million in funding. It was the exposure and the personal growth and development. I learned more from the Holt Prize than what I've learned throughout all of my degrees. And I've done my bachelor's, I've done my honors, and I've done my master's. But what makes it super interesting this year for you as participants is instead of having fixed topics for our 15th year anniversary, we've turned it in the Holt Prize Unlimited, where any team can enter as long as they contribute to one of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are extremely broad and a little bit vague in my personal opinion, but it really does open the playing field for everyone to get engaged and share their business ideas and stand a chance at winning the $1 million in funding. And what's really cool about this is the finals will be taking place in London this year. So the teams that make it all the way to the finals before they go and compete on the global stage for the $1 million in funding, they will actually be living with the best startups from all over the world for 3 weeks, living with experts, mentors, as well as some of the Holt Prize team to really make sure that they're delivering the best pitch possible and their business model is to the top of its performance and the best it can be. So how can you get involved and compete in this competition? Well, first, it's forming a team. And to me, this is the most valuable part throughout the entire contest. As for team eligibility and requirements, it's a minimum of 3 team members and a maximum of 5 team members, all of whom have to be from the same university, except for 1 student. 1 student is allowed to be from a different university. And that's really the only requirements when it comes down to team eligibility. And why I say it's so important is throughout this year-long competition, you're going to have days you feel like giving up, and making sure you have a strong support system being your team is going to have your back and pull you back up and guide you throughout the process. It is so important. And what I always tell people who are looking to enter, I'm like, your idea can change, your business can change, but one thing that can't really change is your team, because that's the foundation of everything that's currently being built. The second part of getting involved in the competition is it's time to ideate. Really get creative around different solutions or problems you're looking to tackle and solve. And advice I give when it comes to this is solve a problem that you can directly relate to. Because when it comes down to pitching and it comes down to staying motivated and being passionate, I really break it into 3 whys. Why are you the right person to tackle this problem? Why is now the right time to do it? And the third why is why you? And the why you is the most important aspect to it. If you can answer these 3 questions and get your word across throughout your pitch, you'll make it incredibly far in any competition, and you'll raise a lot of money, and venture capitalists will see it within you and the team directly. And thirdly is your participation and what's required to get started. So as for the online applications, we'll require a 4-minute pitch video you'll need to submit. We will also require your pitch deck, and we will require a 1-pager just giving a brief overview of what you and your company do. So that's really all it's about. And before I close it off, I wanted to leave you guys with a question. And that question is, what will you do to change the world? So I'm open to take any questions and hope we'll see you guys participate, because the worst case scenario is you work on your business, you develop all the documents you need for your company, you grow as a person, which isn't a bad scenario. And the best case scenario, you win $1 million in funding. There really is nothing to lose, and it ties in strong with the current competition taking place on your campus. So if you have the documents already, making this extra submission is just around the corner, and I look forward to having you guys enter and participate. Thanks, Leah.
Great. Thank you so much, Francisco. So that's a backgrounder on the Holt Prize. If you guys have any questions about the presentation or the Holt Prize, let us know now. Also, if you are entering the McGuinness and you want to enter the Holt Prize, reach out to me, and we'll make that happen and make that process seamless. So questions from the room and on Zoom? Yeah.
Yeah, you told about the foundations from the library, what we can expect from, what, how we can use that.
Yeah, so the foundation directory, so there was also a question on chat asking for a link to the foundation directory. So you have to actually go physically to the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. So the closest one would be Oakland, wherever that is, that way. And actually go to a library computer and ask a librarian to give you access to it. You can't access it online, unfortunately. So when you get to the foundation directory, what you'll do again is search for foundations, and you'll further refine it by searching for program-related investments, and you'll get the foundations with program-related investments. Or you could also search by issue area. For instance, if you are working on, it's future of work, maybe a new way for education or training, which again is connected to the UN SDGs. And Francisco, can I ask you to actually flash that slide with the SDGs? I'm going to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let me pull it up for you quickly.
Thank you. So then you'll also get foundations that are focused on those issue areas. So for instance, the Richard King Mellon Foundation is focused on economic mobility. Now, economic mobility can be defined in such broad ways. It could be, enabling someone to go to work, a new training program, a new MOOC that you're designing. So it can cover so many, it can be applied, that goal could be applied to so many things. So these are the SDGs. And if you've not seen this before, you see that it spans 17 issue areas. So again, a lot of them are so broad. For instance, no poverty. Poverty is of course the number one issue, and there's so many ways and so many avenues that you can tackle that, and so many contributors to poverty. And so it could, again, it could be economic mobility, it could be education, but it will connect to poverty at some point. And so that could be one of your issue areas. Responsible consumption and production. If you're working on a supply chain company, and you can you can demonstrate, the stages of the supply chain. For those of you who have taken supply chain classes, which the last stage was, for instance, returns. How do you touch the product at the end of its life? That could apply to to SDG 12. Sustainable cities can be anything with an urban application, whether it's design, whether it's, a new way to get around, a scooter or whatever it is. So all of these, if you look at it, try to understand how what your company does can relate to one of these 17 goals. Oops. Yeah.
So when you talk about impact and actually applying for these fellowships, right? Do we need to have tangible proof of how this impact actually, like proof as in how the idea we have and after the tech model that actually has the impact, or can you still apply with just the idea?
Well, you have to
tangible proof of impact.
So Francisco, I think this is a two-part answer. So the first part of it is you have to understand how it connects to one of the sustainable development goals. So for you, I would say it would be health and well-being, right? SDG 3, right? So Francisco, at what stage of development are the companies that apply to health PRIs typically?
So, like I said, we receive broad applications from just ideas to companies that have been existing for 3 years, that started from the very beginning, some even longer. I also wanted to touch base on this because I heard her ask to what level do you need to describe the influence on that certain SDG or the impact. So I would say now in the beginning stage of the competition, it could be fairly broad how you plan on targeting that SDG and what you'd like to do for it. But if once you get to the regional summits and past, then you would need to do a little bit of statistics, a little bit of mathematics to actually show the impact you would have on that specific SDG. whether it be to job creation or wellness, and the percentage changes that could potentially lead to for like CO2 emissions decreases, things along those lines. And another piece of advice, when people look at the SDGs, businesses normally target multiple. So when it comes to pitching, students tend to show as many as possible, which is actually a negative thing to do. I'd rather focus on one or two that your business really impacts hard and has a massive impact, and use that as your guiding outline. Because if you're going to show 5 different SDGs you're targeting, for me, you have a minimal impact on all of them. And it's just not the best direction to take. Rather focus on 1 or 2 and dive deep into it.
Other questions? On Zoom.
Can I pitch what I'm doing?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course you can. Compare so that the people on Zoom can see.
Hi, host. My name is Sandeep. So I'm a master's in data analytics students. So we are technically a space tech startup. Instead of rockets, we just throw payloads to space. So there are some kind of profitable side for that. You can provide folks satellite internet, that's there. But in a non-profitable way, so I want to privatize world peace. So it's very hard tax, because if you look at the nuclear states, the countries with nuclear weapons, like few folks like US, Russia, India, France, Britain, Israel, North Korea, China. So they have around 1,000 nuclear warheads hidden somewhere in their areas. So they will launch it if they need some kind of conflict happen. Definitely they will do. So we want to do that. We want to put some kind of intercontinental ballistic missile interceptors in space using our technology. So if you it's technically allowed by international conventions. So it's very hard task, because we have to talk with many parties, like those nuclear states, because they won't be like to somebody do that. So it's very hard task, but eventually it's very good. If a country want to violate other territory integrity of other country, then yeah, they are trying to nuke or launch a intercontinental ballistic missiles. Yeah, definitely we can intercept it with our missiles in space. That's we want to do. So there is other profitable ways we use our technology. That's it. But in non-profitable, want to do peace in an era. That's I'm thinking, and that's our goal. Thank you.
Thank you. We have something on chat. Small company for an underrepresented. Yeah, so there's a number of those. So Sophia, if you can, I can help you search for, so the question is for those of you, I mean, you can see it here, and for those in Zoom, you could go on chat to see the question on what prizes are available for a small tabletop game company. So my first protest with that is there's no prize too large. I don't understand why you might be limiting yourself and thinking the whole prize might be too big. I mean, this does respond to an SDG, which is education. So I mean, maybe you could talk to Francisco and I and try to understand, you know, why you might think it's too large. If anything, You can never have enough when you're a startup. But I would love to speak to you about other possibilities in terms of the other available prizes, accelerators that are focused on education. Other questions? Great. So my email is Leah Lizarondo. I'm going to type it on chat. And then if you reach out to me, I can also give you Francisco's contact. And then again, if you are entering the McGuinness and are interested in dovetailing that into the Hulk Prize, let me know. And Francisco and I will work with you to make that happen, because if you already submit for one, might as well make it possible to submit for two. And it's not just another prize, it's a 1 million opportunity. And again, it's exciting to be in the regionals where you get some training, and then even more so at the finals in London, where you have this opportunity to be part of this amazing accelerator. And then of course, pitch to an audience of people. And as you saw, Bill Clinton was in all the photos, which will also expose you to the Clinton Global Initiative, which of course, no one can promise, but that's another great foundation, global foundation to be exposed to as part of the Hulk Prize.
And I do just want to add in, Leah, I just want to say to everyone who's listening in, feel free to reach out regardless to the competition, whether it be about the Hulk Prize or about your business as a whole. I was in your shoes. I know how tough it can be when it comes to starting a business and going through fundraising. We've just been through the fundraising process ourselves with my company. We raised $200,000. So any way I can help, whether it be a contact or just a little bit of guidance, always happy to do that.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Francisco. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Leah. Have an awesome day.